peek. He's got signs blowing all over the place, basically coming off. The other thing, too, Tyndall Air Force Base. All right, so their anemometer is about 35 feet up. It's a pretty good ways up. And so they've gusted to 130 miles per hour. Now, that's in the eye wall. That's south of us.
Okay, so we drove through Tyndall Air Force Base when we came from Port St. Joe. We have live pictures out of Port St. Joe. Now, this morning, I was not happy with staying there. I felt very uncomfortable. You agreed with me.
No worries.
You got me out of there.
Yes.
We have video, and apparently it is horrible there right now. Just absolutely horrible in Port St. Joe. We can show you that video. I've not seen the video. We can't see the video. But I can only imagine how bad it is.
Yeah, I mean, if they're getting the eye wall, as we talked about, we're talking winds over 100 miles an hour. Tyndall's gusted to 130. You know, you're not too far from there. You probably see over 100 miles an hour, like what we're talking about. So there's probably structural damage. We don't know how much water's come in, all right? So the surge has been coming up there as well. That could be another issue down those streets.
And the surf on top of that. And that's the problem, is we had all of those houses that are right along Highway 98, right?
Right.
And the water rise is one thing, but it's getting the wave action on top of that. And some of those, Jim, were still on wood pilings, the older homes.
Right. And the ones you showed this morning, you know, sitting up there on those wood pilings, I mean, the good news is the debris may be able to go underneath you if you get surge, but the problem is that they blow if they're old enough, they blow the house right off the stilts.
Exactly, and then what happens is that hits another house, right? And then you get this domino effect. And so we're really concerned. We were being really hosted by a family. Let me tell you the story. A wonderful family in Port St. Joe. A couple people of the family, they did evacuate. When we left, and we had a structural engineer, they decided to go. A couple stayed behind. My producer just tried calling them, can't get in contact with them. We, of course, will continue to try to call them. Maybe they just have zero service being out there.
Well, yeah, that's another thing. 100 mile an hour.
Sorry.
100 mile an hour gusts. That's okay. You know, when you start talking about 100 mile an hour gusts, you're going to start losing cell towers and cell service.
So once we can get connected with them, we'll do that.
Do they have a house phone? You know?
So
sometimes we can use the actual house line and call and get to them.
I don't know on top of that, but we'll do our best to get in contact with them. But again, this is coming ashore right now. It is a Category 4, Jim.
Yep.
We have not seen a Category 4 make landfall in October since 1950, nor have we ever seen a Category 4 make landfall in the Panhandle. And so a lot of people may say, why now? Why is this happening now if we haven't seen it ever happen?
That's a great question. I mean, everything came together. We'll do the Monday morning quarterbacking later, but I think it is amazing. You know, when you stop for a second and say, okay, Hazel in 54 came ashore with a pressure of 938 millibars. This thing at 928. So it's a whole 10 millibars lower. What are you getting?
Okay, so here's the thing, and I think this is also really good for our viewers. The highest gust I just got was 33 miles an hour. Now, how high can I possibly be? 7, 8 feet with my arm, stretched out like this? 33 miles an hour kind of gives us that jolt.
Yeah, if you're perpendicular to the wind, right?
Imagine a sustained 100 mile an hour wind. You can't stand in that. This is just a 33 mile an hour gust that kind of jostles you, okay?
Well, and you know what's interesting, too? If you get up to that top of that building right there, percent higher. They can be 40% higher than they are here on the ground. I mean, you know, just looking ahead of us, and you can't see this because of where my cameraman is standing to get protected, there are buildings blocking this. So the wind is having to come through and around those buildings. So we're not getting the full brunt of those winds. But our winds are offshore. They're going to be out of the north for the entire time, it looks like, especially with the center going over toward Panama City. So we're in Panama City Beach, which is north and west of where the center is going to go.
So I just can't emphasize enough. The highest we're getting here is gust, not even sustained, right? The gusts that jostle me and Jim are, about 40 miles an hour, 37, 38, 39. This thing has 150 mile an hour wind. That's why this is a catastrophic hurricane. You can't stand in that. We've been in how many hurricanes combined? I can't even add them up, right?
Over 150.
Over 150. I don't know that either of us have ever stood in sustained hurricane force winds.
The most wind I've ever gotten is 100, and I have to literally be down here to do it, to get out of the wind. When I was strapped down at Virginia Tech, that was a different story because you're strapped in and you can take the wind. But even that was rough.
So imagine seeing sustained winds like we're seeing already, Category 1 confirmed, and we know that there are obviously higher winds than that. What that's going to do to your structures, what that's going to do to the beach.
Well, we've already seen what it's done to the beach, and actually, what I may do after I leave you on this shot, I may head over there just to see if the water's come up a little bit, because we're getting closer toward high tide, and we're not going to get a big bump there. I think that the tide will change about 1.3 feet, but either way, 1.3 feet on top of stuff that's already lapping up against the dunes and coming through some of these, little funnels in between these buildings is a big deal.
All right,
Ava, do you smell that? Do you smell the wood?
It's burning.
No, it's the pine. It's the pine snap. Limbs have snapped. You always have that distinct smell when the limbs have snapped.
It is coming ashore. We're starting to see that northeastern part of the eye come ashore. All right, and so that is coming ashore just to the west of Mexico Beach. Mexico Beach is getting crushed right now.
Right in the eye wall, the right side eye wall. They're also getting maximum surge. And another area that's getting maximum surge is down in Apalachicola. Chris Warren, just in the last 10 minutes that Steph and I have been talking, tell us about how your conditions have changed.
It's been going nuts, Jim. I can tell you that for sure. I mean, the water is coming up even faster than it was earlier, and the debris with it. There's part of a white picket fence here that is right here on the doorstep. A lot of debris in the water, and the winds. Take a look at how fast these winds are going. In fact, at the airport in Apalachicola, the last gust measured at 82 miles an hour before the anemometer was blown out. So no more wind measurements from that site. Also record surge here, 6.51 feet. And looking right now at the wind and the relentless beating Apalachicola is taking right now. It is the water, but as Stephanie mentioned earlier, the relentless portion of the wind, the fact that the wind is blowing so hard for so long in one direction, it can kind of weaken structures, and then eventually when the wind shifts, that could be it for some. It really wears you down. It's sort of like in a boxing match. You might be able to go a couple of rounds, but going deep late into the fight, something's going to give eventually. And right now we are seeing things that are giving, including a fence, debris, and earlier on the horizon, a very ominous sight, seeing a sailboat. Mast was broken, and it was floating away until we lost visibility. Don't know where it ended up, if it sank, what happened with it, but it's showing us that just from this location, what's going on all around us. We're seeing things floating by, which tells stories of what might be happening, and really all you have to see the wrath of this hurricane, Hurricane Michael here in Apalachicola, with these winds, these horizontal winds blowing this water and blowing now all sorts of stuff here through and down Water Street. What we're experiencing also that we haven't had as much of is the whistling. It's starting, we're starting to hear the wind going through different structures in town, and there's a whistling and kind of a howling that tends to happen. And you can understand, we're in a sturdy structure here with, brick, and we've got 2 stories, not worried about the integrity of this structure. But if you could imagine if you did not evacuate, and you're sitting here in your house without power, and the sounds that must be going on, because just where we are here, the ferocity of this storm, and now off in the distance, this shows up quite obviously there, a buoy or a marker, as the pink color there has broken free from its mooring. What that could be is it could be the marker for a mooring where a boat can come and tie up to it, but that has broken loose, or maybe it got washed from land out into the Apalachicola River, which is flowing essentially in the wrong direction. We're getting these southwesterly winds absolutely howling right now. We're seeing a lot more stuff in the water, and that can be a function of either the wind taking stuff and blowing it into the water, or the water coming and claiming things that aren't put away, that aren't tied down, or potentially ripping stuff away from what they were originally secured to. And we're seeing more of that just washing up right here. I mean, where we are, there's the pilings out here in the distance. That's where the water should be, and we're seeing it right now on the steps of this hotel. And right now the storm is showing no signs of relenting, giving up, with record surge already and a broken anemometer at the airport, winds gusting to 82 miles an hour. So here in Apalachicola, still in it and still keeping a very close eye on this water. Let's go now to Panama City Beach with Stephanie Abrams. And Stephanie, we just got a huge band that came through and is letting up a little bit, but absolutely crushing. The water here seems to be moving in all directions with this surge, which we know and remains such a potentially powerful and devastating threat.
Okay, this is happening right now, guys. This is coming ashore. Landfall is happening in between Mexico Beach and Panama City. Let me tell you, Mexico Beach, Port St. Joe, getting crushed right now. Panama City Beach also getting crushed. We are actually just to the west of the worst weather. This is not the worst weather, and look at that. I'm telling you, this is happening. We are outside of the eye wall. And this is how strong the winds are. The gusts I've been able to get on my anemometer here that measures the wind have gusted around 40 miles an hour. Let me tell you, they're probably higher than that. This is the best I can do with my little wind instrument. But even just those gusts, you see how they kind of throw me, kind of knock me off my feet. Imagine having sustained winds at 100 miles an hour, gusting even higher than that, and what that's doing to the buildings. You see what it's doing to the water, where Chris is located. And when that rain hits your face, it feels like someone is throwing a bunch of pebbles into your face. That's how the rain feels out here. All right? This is happening. A Category 4 is making landfall in the panhandle of Florida. We have never seen a Category 4 make landfall. Let's go to Dr. Nab to talk about what we are seeing right now, Dr. Nab, with our wind speeds and gusts, and what we can expect over the next couple of hours.
Well, right now, Mexico Beach, Florida is taking the full brunt of the eastern eye wall, and the cameras we've been able to see, it's complete whiteout. It looks like a blizzard, but it is not anything of the sort. It is a combination of the strongest winds that this Category 4 hurricane is bringing onto land, along with the storm surge. And if we go to Max 47, you'll be able to see the radar that I'm showing that has the radar depiction, which indicates to me that the center of circulation is coming ashore right near St. Andrews Sound. That's between Mexico Beach and Panama City, and just to the southeast of Tyndall Air Force Base. But here's Mexico Beach in the eastern eye wall. And here's the center of circulation coming onshore near Crooked Island Beach and St. Andrews Sound. We will await an official word, a statement from the National Hurricane Center, but it certainly appears on the radar that it is coming ashore. You know, the official definition of landfall of a hurricane is when the exact center of the circulation crosses land. And that appears to be happening right now. But depending on where you are, you're getting a very different experience. Mexico Beach is getting the full brunt of the eastern eye wall, the strongest part of the hurricane. Panama City is on the northwestern eye wall right now. So certainly going to be getting hurricane conditions over there, but not as strong as the winds in Mexico Beach. And then to the east and southeast of Mexico Beach, the hurricane conditions will be affecting Port St. Joe, Cape San Blas, St. Joseph Bay, Apalachicola, along with that being the onshore flow side. And we've seen the storm surge values continue to come up. And there are inland communities just inland from Mexico Beach that will be receiving the eastern eye wall. The community of Overstreet is not far inland from Mexico Beach. And hopefully there's nobody there to experience it, but you know, this is why the National Weather Service issues an extreme wind warning in these cases, and they did so before the eye wall came ashore, are for people to be taking shelter of last resort as you would for a tornado. These are major hurricane force winds. The hurricane is not going to be just a landfall event. It's not just going to be an inland event. This is the beginning of the event for so many people. And, you know, hurricane conditions are going to spread a long way inland. When you have a hurricane of this strength, of this magnitude coming ashore, Stephanie, this is going to bring hurricane conditions well inland. And not just in the state of Florida, you know, southeastern Alabama, southwestern Georgia are going to get hammered by this, and there's so many trees. And so Stephanie, in Panama City Beach, you've got to be seeing the stronger winds, the strongest winds you've seen so far. Look at that. Stephanie, go ahead.
I mean, Rick, this is the strongest wind by far, the strongest consistent wind that we have seen with this so far. Now, remember, we are not in the eye wall. Can you only imagine what they're going through right now in Mexico Beach, in Panama City? We are outside the worst of the winds right now. you get tossed about. I've been trying to take wind observations, doing the best I can with that as well. But that's what happens. But this is certainly the strongest by far that we have seen. See if I can get another wind observation, because the highest we saw before this came through, and again, I'm taking this on just a little wind instrument like this, was near 40 miles an hour. Sorry, it takes your breath away just a little bit. Sometimes when you stand out here and you get hit by those winds. But if this gives you any clue of what they're going through, where they're getting sustained Category 4 hurricane winds coming in, this is epic right now, especially to see in October this type of a hurricane making landfall. We have never seen a Category 4 make landfall. It's making landfall right now. Port St. Joe, Mexico Beach getting hammered. Also into Panama Beach, Panama City, I should say. We're just a little to the west of the worst of the weather. Just to the west of the worst of the weather in Panama City Beach. Jim, Cantori's over here. What are you seeing at? I know.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Now you know why my mic's not working.
Oh, there you go. That's all right. What
Anyway,
were you
listen,
seeing?
here's the deal. I was just reading an
Watch that sign, Jim. I'm not kidding. Watch that sign. You see that right there?
We just got a reading out of the Tyndall Air Force Base, folks, with FSU, 920 millibars.
I believe
920 millibars. Now, I don't know if there's error with that, but still, that's an incredible pressure down through here. We had one of the pieces of the eye wall ripple out toward us. All right, so I've been watching the radar while you've been doing your shot, and we're going to get another one as well coming our way. But Grand Lagoon, hammered. Downtown Panama City, hammered.
Hammered.
Hey, Hardwick, is Charles with us? Can we get to Charles?
Charles Peak. Where is he at?
Charles Peak.
He's in Panama City. Okay.
Let's bring up his shot. Let's bring up his shot, all right? From what I understand, he's actually at a house that is showing some damage as we speak. This thing, you know what's really interesting is Tyndall Air Force Base right now is in the eye. They could actually be seeing a brightening.
Right. So what's happening is Tyndall Air Force Base went through the northern eye wall. That's where they're getting those wind gusts and that pressure. So being in the center of the hurricane, it's clear. Like Jim mentioned, they might be seeing blue skies right now.
Right.
But don't let it fool you, because there's another eye wall to come through. Let's see if I can get a wind off here.
Yeah, amazing, guys. We're actually getting landfall during the day.
Yeah.
That's got to be amazing at Tyndall right now. If you're in Callaway, you're going to get into that center here pretty soon. Mexico Beach, you're not going to get in it at all. You were in the eastern eye wall. You're going to get into the southern eye wall. It just went to your west. But I think we're going to talk to Dr. Dabb in just a second, and he's going to tell us that we've had a landfall. I wouldn't be surprised at all, because this thing is very, very close to being, center point on shore.
A landfall officially is when the center of the circulation goes on shore. And that's what they're going to wait for in order to call this. All right? So when you get the center of the circulation, it's not like the northern portion of it. It has to go right through the dead center of the hurricane in order to classify it as a landfall. So once that happens, and what Jim is saying is, as you look at the radar, you can see that the dead center of that circulation coming over that Tyndall Air Force area is going to get the calm. At least they get the calm, because places like Mexico Beach, places like Panama City will just get hammered for several hours.
Yeah, and remember, too, places around Tyndall and Callaway, they're going to get that calming, maybe a blue sky, and then all of a sudden, boom, they get the southern eye wall. You remember when we went through that night?
Yes.
2008 in Galveston?
And what happens, of all the times of these eye walls that we've been through, what happens is that first one, it kind of loosens things up, okay? Then you get that second one, and that's when stuff really starts flying. I saw that in Gene, we saw that in Ike. And so don't let your guard down and feel like, oh, we did well in that one eye wall, because let me tell you, that second eye wall will exacerbate the situation.
I'm going to go fix my mic because I feel like the coward.
Okay, you go fix that. You go fix it. I'll continue to be live here. We have not had a ton of debris, with the exception of the roof of this hotel right behind us. Still holding on pretty okay. And we've seen little bits of debris here, but they were prepared. In Panama City Beach, they were prepared for this Category 4. And Floridians, a lot of times they say, oh, it's just a Category 1, maybe Category 2 or 3. They took this one seriously. And so I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna try to get a wind up when these come through for you guys to see what we can get. But can you believe we are not even in the eye wall, and this is the wind that we're getting? Can you imagine what's happening right now in Panama City, over towards Mexico Beach, over towards Port St. Joe? They are going to stay in winds that are exponentially higher than this right now for several hours. They're not going to get any break because they're not going to go through that eye. All right? Wow. Wow, wow. That was a gust over 40 miles an hour. Just to give you an idea also, just a lesson in the winds, a lot of people think that I'm perhaps standing and, 100-mile-an-hour winds. That is not the case. You cannot stand outside and sustain 100-mile-an-hour winds. You just can't. Now, I realize I'm taking, a wind instrument reading on just this little thing. It's not very official. But it just gives you an idea, right, of what we're seeing here. That our winds that are knocking me over and looking like this on screen, where I am, at least at my level with this little wind instrument, are gusting, not even sustained, gusting about 40 miles an hour. So we have seen, I know for a fact in Port St. Joe, we had some University of Florida people put out some wind instruments, and we got a reading that they were sustained at 78 miles an hour, gusting over 100 miles an hour. So imagine sustained 78-mile-an-hour winds. I'm not even close to that. I'm about half that, all right? And that's not even the worst of the storm yet. Let's now go to Chris Warren. Chris, our winds have gone up exponentially, and they have stayed up. Have your winds changed in the last, let's just even say 15 to 20 minutes?
The winds have been consistent, Stephanie. We're still watching this right now. It seems like the direction has changed a little bit. It seems like they're coming a little bit more out of the southwesterly direction instead of the due south direction. And right now here in Apalachicola, we're looking out over what was a dry park yesterday. And essentially now we have swells and breakers, breaking waves coming right up to the doorsteps here. And we're not going to stay in this exact location. We're going to go up at about 15 feet here in a little bit. The water's just getting a little too close, and you can see it's lapping up. The water is pushing through and into parts of downtown Apalachicola. We're looking out over what is essentially now an expanded Apalachicola River with waves coming in over Water Street right now and into town. Right here at the base, this water breaking into these brick steps here. This water is coming in. There should be about 6 or 7 steps there. We can consistently see 3. And then, of course, the top part of the brick before you get into the building here, which we're going to get into pretty soon. We're relatively sheltered from the winds where we are right now, but you can see off in the distance the wind blowing the water that is coming down from this storm coming down, and also water that has been pushed inland. We're seeing now the water that is coming up record levels. It's likely gone up from the last report of 6.51 feet in Apalachicola because we're watching it minute by minute getting higher. It's gradually coming up, but it's coming up steadily, and we're seeing quite a bit of debris in the water. It's a lot of grasses, sticks, twigs. There's a piece of a white picket fence off in the distance, another pallet that's been swirling around. And the water, too, has been not necessarily going in one direction. We've been watching a lot of the same debris kind of coming and going with these winds that can be so erratic as they're coming through some of these buildings here in downtown Apalachicola. And this park is probably under about 3 feet of water is my guess here. We can't see any benches anymore. I think I can see the top of maybe a couple. I could just see the top of a bench over here in the park just beyond that flagstaff. and the water is pushing around all sorts of stuff, essentially. And earlier, we saw a sailboat that had a broken mast, and it's that helpless feeling when you look at a boat that is not under control. It's still floating, but moving at the mercy of the winds from this Category 4 hurricane that we're dealing with some of the strong winds here. The last report at the airport, 82 mile per hour before the anemometer was blown out. And that's the latest here in Apalachicola, as the winds are still howling, still persistent. And we're going to be moving, I think, locations here to try to find a better spot, as I'm trying to also figure out what is all this stuff in the water, all sorts of debris. So let's go back now. I believe we're going to go to Panama City Beach to Stephanie. So let's go back to Stephanie. Steph.
Okay, Chris, this is the worst wind we've seen. And I'm looking at the radar on my phone. And what I've noticed is that we are getting right into the outer portion of some of the worst weather. And you can tell a difference, can't you? I mean, even from just 15 minutes ago. So this wind field is expanding a little bit, especially on the west side. Woo, we can catch our breath. While we catch our breath, Dr. Nab has some breaking news with this historic hurricane. Dr. Nab, take it away.
Yeah, we have an official statement from the Hurricane Center with their intermediate public advisory that we have the official landfall of the center of Hurricane Michael. Winds had continued to increase all the way up till the time of landfall. Maximum sustained winds set at 155 miles per hour, just below what would be a Category 5 hurricane, and a pressure of 919 millibars. Talk about making history on the Florida Panhandle. This is certainly doing that at 30.0 north, 85.5 west at 12:30 p.m. Central Time. Now, that's near Mexico Beach, Florida, but we should get a little bit more specific than that, because Mexico Beach itself, the community where the population is, and hopefully is not during this event and everybody evacuated, but where the community is there, they have been going through and are still going through the eastern eye wall, receiving the full brunt, probably the strongest winds on land that we're seeing, and a devastating storm surge, no doubt. And the center of circulation has been going over St. Andrews Sound, maybe just on the other side of Crooked Island Beach and just to the southeast of Tyndall Air Force Base. But there are additional communities just inland from there, the community of